I got the world's greatest husband. His name is Keith. I love you.
I just got home from work and my wife wasn't there.
Do you guys believe that she was kidnapped?
It's a wonderful, wonderful life with you.
Whenever you're ready.
Oh. Oh my God. So the story that the world thinks they know is that I am a master manipulator who's fooled everyone. That's my magic wand. Yeah. Sorry. I'm gonna do ridiculous things because some of this is ridiculous. The Sherri Papini that's out there, it's not me. She's not real. It's just this version of me that has been created to fit the narrative for the media's version of what happened.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be talking about Sherri Papini. She is the real life version of the movie Gone Girl. And if you haven't heard of her, she was a woman that went missing in November of 2016. And her husband had arrived home and discovered his wife was not there. She had gone for a run earlier in the day, and they called 911 trying to figure out where she was at. And it was several weeks before Sherri Papini would turn back up alive, but she was pretty badly harmed, honestly. She was beaten up, her long blonde hair was chopped off, and you know, people were wondering what happened to her, who took her, how did she get away? Sherri Papini ended up blaming two Hispanic women and said that they kidnapped her and were pretty much going to sell her to a police officer that was going to purchase her. It ultimately came out later on that Sherri was actually with her ex-boyfriend and kind of wanted to, I guess, teach her husband a lesson or something, needed some attention. It was this huge ordeal that Sherri got herself in, and she went to federal prison for it, for lying to a federal agent, wasting thousands and thousands of taxpayer dollars, GoFundMes that were raised for her and her return, thousands of dollars that were used to pay credit card bills, victim funds that she used and signed up for to receive thousands of dollars in therapy, all for a lie. And now, after being released from prison and losing full custody of her kids, she has decided to come back out into the spotlight and give her side of the story. Now, of course, she's gonna try to go and paint herself as sort of a liar, but not that big of a liar. She had to lie because there's a really big and really good reason behind it. And it was because her husband was abusive. What? So she made up this false kidnapping claim saying that two Hispanic women kidnapped her and were going to sell her into slavery. Essentially, she beat herself up incredibly bad all over her body just to get attention. Now, it probably got out of hand a little bit and got a little bit bigger than what she anticipated for it, but she knew it was happening. She knew what was going on, and she lied and lied and lied. They even did sketches of these women that didn't exist, but now Sherri's out trying to tell her story and give bits and pieces of information as to why she kind of justified for lying. She even went on the Vile Files. If you ever watched The Bachelor, Nick Vile, he's been interviewing other people like Sherri Papini, which I don't feel like she should be on there, just as I don't feel like Gypsy Rose should have been on there, giving these people these platforms that really do not deserve it. Sherri Papini is a pathological liar and an attention-seeking individual, and I think all of this is a really bad idea when we start letting her into the public eye and not just calling it for what it is. And when I watched her recent documentary, I went into it with an open mind. Like, I'm not going to be somebody that's going to immediately shut everything down. That's not my personality type. I kind of try to listen to what people are saying. That documentary did anything. It was just really put the nail in the coffin that she is just a pathological liar. I think it would be a good time to kind of get into what Sherri Papini originally told the police after she returned from her abduction. And I want you to really listen to what these lies were and how detailed all of these lies that she told, kind of just see where she falls and how she's still lying to this day in order to make herself look not as guilty. Now, of course, her main goal is to get her children back in her custody, kind of repairing her public image and getting custody back of her children. Do I see that happening? I mean, I don't really know, but as of right now, I still view her as a huge liar and a very problematic person. But before we get into all of that, make sure you like and hit the subscribe button. I have officially hit over 5,000 subscribers, so thank you guys. But let's go ahead and get into today's video on Sherri Papini.
I know this is hard. I'm gonna take pictures of your face, okay? I got it up right there. It'll grow back.
The first day with the zip ties, getting out of them because they were behind my back. So I pulled them. I did one of these moves, and that's what this scar right there is from. Is the very beginning when I got them off. There was a chain around my waist. So the chain had. Okay, sorry. The chain. So here's a pretty stick figure.
Let's draw the whole room. You want to do that?
Sure.
We'll lay out the whole room.
There was this pull. Stupid pull is attached here. Came down like all the way up. Pull is the only reason why I was there. The cable was here, and it needed a turn. I'm sorry for swinging. And then the cable I could reach all the way to the bed. Couldn't reach the door. Couldn't reach the window. Could reach the bed. There was at all times there was a bucket in the closet. That's what I used to go to the bathroom in.
So according to the police transcripts that are describing what Sherri Papini was telling them and giving all these details about these women and the incidences that occurred, she kind of describes herself as someone that wouldn't give up, and she was, fighting tooth and nail to try to escape these horrible women that have kidnapped her and taken her away from her family, and that she wasn't going to go down with type of attitude, and that she somehow managed to escape and just put her head down and really stick it out and save her own life, essentially. Now, we know that's not true, and she was with her ex-boyfriend, which is even crazier because she convinced this guy to do these things to her. Her newest story is that he was just sick. He did all this to her. She didn't want any of this to happen. And it's like, how many people around you are abusive? I mean, let's just talk about it. She wants to say her husband was abusive to her, so that's why she had to hide this emotional affair that she was having with her previous ex-boyfriend. And then she gets with her ex-boyfriend, and then all of a sudden now he's changed into somebody that's abusive and into all this sadism and, dominance type of behavior. That's crazy to me. Approximately 5:50 p.m. on November 2nd, 2016, Papini's then husband reported that his wife was missing from the home. Papini was a 34-year-old mother of 2 young children living in California, near Redding, in the Eastern District of California. Husband told Shasta County Sheriff's Office that when he arrived home from work, he was unable to locate Papini or their 2 children. Husband learned that the children had never been picked up from daycare, as was customary. Husband checked his Find My iPhone app and was able to locate Papini's phone near Sunrise Drive in Redding, California. He went to the location and retrieved the phone. Papini was last seen running on Sunrise Drive and was believed to have gone missing between the hours of 10 a.m. and 12 p.m. Extensive searches were conducted for Papini all over Shasta County, as well as in several states, as the investigation gained worldwide attention. Hundreds of tips were submitted to the SCSO and to the FBI. Immediately upon Papini's disappearance, law enforcement scoured the area where Papini appeared to have gone missing. And the husband showed the detectives where he found Papini's cell phone and earbuds with blonde hairs entangled in them at the south corner of Sunrise Drive and Old Oregon Trail. The husband thought the cell phone had been placed, which he described as weird. Yeah, no kidding. Papini's purse and jewelry were accounted for, but husband did not know if any unusual banking activity had occurred in Papini's bank accounts. In follow-up interviews, husband stated that he and Papini did not have marital issues, but occasionally fought as any married couple would. The last fight that they had had was October 2016, over a messy room. Husband stated Papini could get loud when she was angry and knew how to push his buttons. One of Sherri Papini's friends described Papini as a attention-hungry person who told stories to try to get people's attention. He stated that she fabricated stories of being the victim of abuse from her family, her father, and then him after the couple broke up. They contacted another person and it said that Papini was good at creating different realities for people so that they could see what she wanted them to see, which got her really good attention.
She's a compulsive liar. She would, not talk to you for 3 or 4 days, and then all of a sudden there'd be some fantastical story about what happened.
Shaheen Davari says he dated the mom when she was a 20-year-old youth counselor. Get this, he says he was just 15.
In retrospect, sure, tons of red flags, right? That she was a counselor that was going out with a 15-year-old kid.
Now 35, the professor of communications says Sherri's lies were never ending. For example, she kept insisting she was a skilled surfer.
I surfed all the time when I was 15, 16 years old. It's something that I really enjoyed doing, and she told me that she surfed as well. There was always an excuse as to why she couldn't go surf, and she had to have her surfboard that was at her house but didn't have any pictures.
He says there was also a mystery medical condition.
She was faking a heart condition at one point, and eventually, not only me, but a bunch of people figured out that that was not true.
What did you think when you heard that Sherri Papini was kidnapped?
I was like, there's no way. She's fine. I promise you she's fine. There's just no chance that she got kidnapped.
Investigators also interviewed several of Papini's friends. These friends described Papini as being crazy and wild in her youth. The friends recounted that Papini used to run away, and one described an incident in which Papini ran away from the home at age 16 to Southern California and stayed with friends. Multiple friends also stated that Papini would make up lies, particularly about being the victim of abuse, especially as a youth. On November 24th, 2016, at approximately 4:30 a.m., the California Highway Patrol responded to several 911 calls made regarding a woman subsequently identified as Papini standing or running in the middle of the interstate. This included a truck driver who had stopped for Papini and then called 911 to report the incident. A CHP officer found Papini with the truck driver driving along I-5 near Woodland, California in Yolo County, approximately 146 miles south of the location of her disappearance. Papini had a chain around her waist that one arm was bound to, with additional bindings around her other wrist and each ankle. Papini was transported to Woodland Hospital, where she underwent several physical examinations. She appeared to have lost a considerable amount of weight. Her long blonde hair had been cut much shorter. She had been branded on her right shoulder, although the exact content of the brand was indistinguishable. Papini's nose was swollen. She had bruises on her face, rashes on her left arm and left upper inner thigh, as well as other places. Ligature marks on her wrist and ankles, burns on her left forearm, and bruising on her pelvis and the front of her legs. Toxicology results did not show any significant trace of narcotics in Papini's system at the time of her return, and a physical exam did not show evidence of sexual assault. While at Woodland Hospital, Papini's clothing was collected for DNA sampling, including her sweatshirts, sweatpants, socks, and underwear. Papini told investigators that this was her original underwear from the day of her disappearance. Mixtures of DNA consistent with Papini and one male contributor, who was not the husband, were recovered from multiple cuttings taken from Papini's underwear and one cutting taken from Papini's sweatpants. This was ran through CODIS, where they routinely searched against profiles from cases and evidence, as well as individuals in the database. In 2020, a familial match to the male contributor DNA was identified, which eventually led to the ex-boyfriend. On November 24, 2016, the day Papini was located, Sheriff's Office detectives attempted to interview Papini at Woodland Hospital and during an ambulance ride from Woodland Hospital to another facility. Papini refused to speak to the SCSO detectives, so they gave the audio recorder to the husband, who asked Papini questions. The sheriff's office detectives remained in the room and rode along in the ambulance. However, it was the husband who conducted the interview. The interview was recorded and transcribed in its entirety. Papini provided the following information in the interview. She stated that her abductors alluded to law enforcement being involved in her kidnapping, and therefore she did not want to speak to law enforcement. She explained that her abductors read articles to her that stated Papini had left voluntarily as opposed to being kidnapped, which Papini denied. Further along in the interview, Papini again said that her abductors told her that law enforcement was involved in the kidnapping, and they said she was laughing at me. No one believes you. Everyone thinks you ran away. No one believes you. Guess what? The buyer's a cop. They're never gonna find you. Later in the same interview, Papini expressed concern because officers were writing everything down that she was saying, and she repeatedly stated that she did not want to talk to law enforcement. Papini said that 2 Hispanic women abducted her, although one of the women brought her back. There was an older one and a younger one. They were Hispanic. They spoke Spanish a lot. The Hispanic women always wore masks and were short and wore black leather gloves. Papini described the older woman as really mean and the younger one as seeming reluctantly involved. Papini described the younger abductor as smaller with curly long brown hair who spoke more Spanish. Papini described the older woman as taller and fat, had straight, dark, or black hair with gray in it, and a raspy voice. The older abductor hit the younger abductor, although never saw this happen. She could hear it. Papini stated that her abductors always wore masks, sometimes different colored bandanas, and sometimes lace masks. She had a hard time remembering details about her abductors, including a description of the clothing they were wearing or the words on the hat that one of them was wearing. Papini described the events that occurred at the time she was abducted. A dark-colored SUV containing 2 Hispanic women first drove past her, then backed up when they saw her jogging up the road. One of the women had on sunglasses, and Papini believed she said, "Can you help me?" Papini walked towards the women, who opened the door of the vehicle to show Papini she had a gun, which Papini described as a little revolver. The woman told Papini to put her phone down. She recalled the woman said something to the effect of, "We don't want to kill you." Papini put her phone down and got into the SUV. Papini described the SUV as having tinted windows and either no seats or one seat on the far side and a hump that went up. For several months and even years, Redding and the nearby community were on the lookout for these 2 Hispanic women. Multiple tips were given to law enforcement by the community about suspicious-looking Hispanic women. Papini said that she did not see where the women took her because they wrapped something over her face. Husband asked Papini if her kidnappers put a bag over her head right away. She responded, "I don't remember. I don't know. I think she may have tased me. The next thing I remember, all of my clothes were gone." Although Papini tried to stay awake during the drive, she kept falling asleep. Husband tried to get Papini to describe the road trip after she was abducted. He asked her how long the trip took, whether she felt changes in altitude, what she could describe about the vehicle that she was in. She responded, "I don't remember a lot. I'm missing time. The car smelled really bad, like sewage. She stuck me with something. I kept falling asleep." Papini said that the older abductor liked to hit her and the younger one would yell at her in Spanish. She described how she tried to manipulate her abductors to give her more information about why she was being abducted, including offering to cook and clean for them. However, anytime the younger abductor spoke to Papini, the older woman hit her. Papini said the women put her in a closet with a bucket with kitty litter in it for her to use as a toilet. She described the closet as containing shelves and a metal pole to which the women hooked a cable and a chain to, with the other end of the chain hooked around her waist. The chain was unmovable because it was bolted into the ceiling. Papini described how, when she did not listen to the women, they would lock her in the closet. She stated that there were boards on the window of the room that she was kept in. She provided additional descriptions of her captivity location and her abductors. They would play music loudly, that really annoying Mexican music, and would watch TV. There was a fireplace. I could smell it. I could hear that sound, when you move the handle to open the fireplace. It made a creaky sound and it was cold. It was always cold, and it seemed like it rained almost every night. The husband asked if she ever heard anything distinct that might lead investigators to her abductors, and she answered, "I heard birds. I never heard anything else. They put the stereo right outside my door and played it super loud." She described how her location was always cold and that her abductors would take her blankets away if she made noise. She told the husband that there was no sexual abuse while she was in captivity. She said her abductors fed her once a day, maybe rice or tortillas, and sometimes apples. However, if she behaved, her abductors gave her additional food. She stated many times that her abductors gave her cream of wheat to eat and described how everything tasted horrible and was crap or leftover crap. Papini was also given a bottle of water. To give her meals, her abductors opened the door, put it in there, and slammed the door. When Papini disappeared, she was wearing jogging clothes. When she returned, she was wearing gray sweatpants, a gray sweatshirt, and her original underwear. During the interview, Papini could not explain what happened to her original clothes. She said she fell asleep during the car ride after she was abducted and woke up in a room with different clothes on and no recollection of how her clothes came to be changed. "I didn't have any clothes. All I had was my underwear, which she let me wash when I took a shower." That her abductors cut her hair and put an adult diaper on her.
So many people watching this would wonder, was his spidey sense going off? Didn't he notice that something was off?
Of course I felt that way. There was always something that wasn't right.
No one found me, and I want my husband. I want my husband.
When you first encountered her in the hospital, what was your first instinct?
When I pulled back the curtain and I saw her and I saw the look in her eyes, I felt in that moment that she was lying. And it wasn't until I went to her to embrace her and I could just see the amount of injuries, bruises, burns to her body, and it was a shock to me. And I remember thinking how horrible of me to even think that she could have done this to herself.
She stated that she was branded after the first time she tried to escape. "I tried to get out the first time and that's when she branded me." She described how her abductors brought a table in, hit her back, and tied her to the table. When they branded Papini, her skin made a sizzling, popping sound, and it was very painful. Later in the same interview, Papini said her abductors told her that her buyer wanted Papini branded because that was what he liked. Papini never heard the buyer's name because the abductors spoke mostly Spanish, and Papini did not understand Spanish more than just a few words. These included discussions about medicine, traffic cameras, a delivery gate, and a gamble, as well as Spanish insults directed at Papini. When Papini would take a shower, she was guarded by the younger abductor holding a gun. The abductor said that they were not supposed to hurt Papini and also mentioned getting paid. Papini could not remember much of the day that she returned. She heard two women arguing in Spanish. Papini believed the younger abductor was saying that Papini needed medicine. She heard what she believed was a gunshot, and then she could hear the younger one leave. Papini said the younger abductor was gone for a long time, and she was left alone in the house. She stated that she screamed and screamed until she fell asleep. Papini explained, "I listened so carefully, but it was all Spanish. I heard the word gambling." Papini was asleep when the younger abductor came to get her to leave. It happened really fast, and Papini was in the car. Papini believed a pillowcase was put over her head at some time and did not recall when or how. She said that she tried to stay awake during the night, but it was hard for her to stay awake and she kept falling asleep. She said the abductor's car, they stopped the car and told Papini to get out. She explained that the younger abductor dropped her off. She clipped something off Papini's arm that allowed Papini to move her arm. Then the abductor sped off. Papini's abductor was already far away by the time Papini was able to pull the pillowcase off her head. She stated that she ran to a church and banged on the door, but nobody was there. Papini then ran to the freeway where she tried to flag down motorists. Eventually, a truck driver stopped for Papini and assisted her until CHP arrived. On November 28th and 29th, 2016, Shasta County Sheriff's Office detectives interviewed Papini at her residence and the residence of a family member. Investigators initially believed Papini's abduction was related to human trafficking based on the statements she made regarding a buyer and her abductors discussing getting paid for having abducted Papini. During these interviews, Papini described more details about her abduction. She refused to be alone with detectives and insisted that the husband be present. Detectives explained to Papini that even though their questions to Papini might seem trivial or dumb, there was a reason they were asking those questions. She explained that she understood because she watched a lot of crime shows on television. Asked her to start from the beginning and the events that led up to her abduction. Approximately 11 a.m., Papini sent a text message to husband asking him to come home for lunch. Papini joked with the detectives that the husband was embarrassed about the last text message Papini sent him before she disappeared, which was stated along the lines of, "Honey, would you please come home to have sex with your wife for lunch?" Since husband would not be able to come home for lunch, Papini decided to go for a run. She explained that she had recently gotten a breast augmentation procedure and had just begun to heal enough to start jogging. She wanted to train for a local 5K race and had been using a cell phone app to help her train. Papini said she almost always listened to her wedding song, Michael Bublé's Everything, when she ran because it's a good pace keeper. Papini described the route that she took and people she saw along the route. As she approached the end of Sunrise Drive, she saw a dark-colored SUV with a long black window drive past her and then back up after the occupants of the vehicle saw her. When the vehicle backed up, the woman in the passenger seat called out to her and asked for help. She explained that she had her phone in her right hand and her earbud on, and she took out her left earbud to hear the woman. When Papini approached the vehicle, the woman opened the door, and Papini said saw a small revolver in her hand. When she saw the gun, immediately ducked down, set her phone and her earbuds on the ground, and pulled out some of her hair to leave her phone with her earbuds. Papini said, "Leave." The woman said something like, "We don't want to hurt you," or "We don't want to kill you." Papini could not remember getting in the car. She remembered she had a pillowcase over her head, but no recollection of how the pillowcase came to be over her head. She stated that she woke up already in the vehicle with the pillowcase over her head and it smelled of laundry detergent. She stated she felt nauseous and cold during the drive. She was lying in the back of the vehicle on the floor. The road was windy, her wrists hurt, and her hips were aching from the way that she was positioned. When a detective asked how long it took for Papini to get aching hit when she laid on her side, she said approximately 40 minutes based on the television show she watched last, which was a crime television show called Blacklist. When asked further questions by detectives regarding the trip, Papini could not describe the direction that the vehicle went after she got into it and did not recall any of the stops that were made along the trip. She could not determine the length of the trip because she kept falling asleep. Her two abductors were women. She could hear them speaking, but they spoke in Spanish, which she did not understand. When a detective asked if she recalled any music during the trip, Papini answered yes, mariachi music. Papini could not remember if she heard any commercials to suggest it was a radio playing the music or if it was some type of streaming music from an app. She did not remember getting out of the vehicle. The first thing she remembered was waking up in her room. She had zip ties around her wrists and was no longer wearing the clothes that she had been jogging in. She was wearing sweatpants, a sweatshirt, and no socks. The detectives asked if these sweats were the same sweats she had on when she was recovered. She said no, because they would change me. Detectives asked Papini how many times she thought she was changed, and she stated, "Yeah, I think maybe one more time. The sweatshirt, the top was changed more." When she first woke up in the room, Papini tried to break the zip ties off her wrist. Papini initially stated that her wrists were bound with zip ties behind her back and couldn't break them. When she couldn't break the zip ties, she chewed them until she could break them and then cut her lip in the process. Detectives asked Papini if her wrists were bound with one zip tie or two, and she responded one. Papini explained that she unsuccessfully tried to do one or more of these moves to chop her hands down to break the ties, but eventually she got them off by biting through them, which cut her lip. Papini said that anytime she made noise, her captors would come running into her room. Detectives asked Papini if there was ever a time she made a noise and her abductors would not come running in. She responded no, it was pretty much every time. Papini stated later in the interview that her abductors often played loud music outside of her room. When detectives asked Papini if she ever felt as if she was the only person in the house, she responded no, and explained that she could feel movement in the house and the radio was often blaring loud music. She said that when the music wasn't playing, her abductors would hear her moving in the room and come rushing into the room to beat her. Detectives stated that Papini mentioned in a previous interview that she heard the television and asked if she picked up on any commercials or anything that could help them identify the location of where Papini was held. She said no because she kept falling asleep and the television was in Spanish.
On the day she was found, investigators say they're only able to get the barest nugget from the traumatized Sherri,
which was two Hispanic female adults driving a dark SUV.
Anybody?
2 Hispanic females in a dark-colored SUV in the state of California is not much of a tip.
No, it would be literally a needle in a haystack.
Investigators say those women drove Sherri about 2.5 hours.
She says the sound of the radio was scary to me, but the TV, I feel like I would just kind of rest more. Papini never heard English on the radio or on the television. She later stated that the television wasn't on often, and if there had been English, she might not have heard it because the television volume was low. Detectives asked her about the sounds she heard while she was in captivity, and she said she listened for neighbors and cars, but she heard nothing. She then stated that she heard birds. The detective asked Papini what kind of birds she heard, and she stated, "I don't know, I heard a flicker because I know what the flicker sounds like." Papini told detectives she heard the flicker from the window of the room in which she was being held. After Papini was able to get the zip ties off her wrist, she tried to open the door of the room, but it was locked with a deadbolt. She stood on the bed to get to the window, which was covered with 2 boards. She stated that she tried to yank the effer out of the wall super quick, referring to the board over the window, and broke her nail in the process. The noise she made while trying to get the boards off the window caused her 2 abductors to rush into Papini's room. They struck Papini with something, although Papini did not see the object her abductors used to hit her and thought it could have also been a taser. The next thing she recalled was waking up in a lot of pain on her back, side, and the back of her head, and her neck was sore. She stated, "That's all I remember from that experience." In her previous interview in the hospital and during the ambulance ride, Papini stated that she was branded as punishment for her first escape attempt when she pulled the board off the window. In the same interviews, Papini also stated that her abductors told her that her buyer wanted her branded. Detectives tried to get clarification from Papini and said that it was their understanding that it was after the first escape attempt that Papini was branded. She explained that no, the burn occurred during a later punishment. She stated that her abductors would hurt her when she would look up at her and any time that Papini wasn't on all fours with her head down. Detectives asked Papini how she came to understand that she had to drop down to the floor whenever her abductors came into the room, and Papini explained that her abductors often told her, "Don't look at me," although they never said to get on all fours. Detectives continued to ask Papini to explain what and how she was branded with and why she said it was for punishment for her first escape. Papini explained that the branding was not punishment for trying to escape through the window, but for making too much noise. Papini asked the detectives if her memory could have been disrupted by being tased, and detectives explained that it could not. Papini did not mention being tased during her abduction in her subsequent interviews. Papini said the branding was done in one extended time period and that it was the older abductor who did the actual branding. The younger abductor was to the right and behind Papini, and Papini believed it was the younger abductor who held the tools they used to brand her with. She could not see the tools her abductor used because they were behind her. She described a clicking sound similar to a tinking of a metal pan, like if you were watching a show where they were removing a bullet from someone and dropping it into a pan. Papini had a hard time remembering the details because she was in so much pain, both from the branding and also because of the weight of her body on her breast implants. Detectives asked Papini if she was held down while she was branded. Papini responded, "I wasn't necessarily held down. It was my arm, like I couldn't pull up." Papini did not know what her abductors used for a heat source. She offered up the possibility that it could have been a craft tool or some sort that was used to brand her, but she never saw it. Papini postulated that the tool was smaller than a fire poker, more like the size of a screwdriver, as her abductor was close to her. She explained that after she tried to escape by ripping the boards off the window, her abductors put a chain around her waist and tethered her to a cable attached to a pole in the closet. She tried to get the chain over her hips, but her abductors caught her trying to do this and tightened the chain. It was the cable that was attached to the pole in the closet that made noise when she moved. She stated, "The effing pole is the only reason I was there." She tried to rip the pole out of the closet, which caused her hands to bleed and her fingernails to break when she tried to get the screws out. She could not remember if the pole was in the closet before her escape attempt. Detectives asked Papini what she ate while she was in captivity, and the answers included the following: cream of wheat, but dry and barely mixed, Once she was given 2 apples, a weird cracker, scraps like the fat off of a piece of meat or something, a piece of bread, and mostly tortillas and homemade gritty Spanish rice. Papini described how she tried to exercise every day so she could keep a routine while she was in captivity. However, she had difficulty keeping track of the days because she did not sleep at regular times and generally slept a lot. Detectives asked Papini how she would exercise without making noise that would alert her captors. She stated that she would pull the cable tight and tuck it between her legs. She told the detectives that her abductors punished her for trying to escape by burning her forearm. She could not describe the object to the detectives, but they believed that they used something metal. Papini's abductors provided her with a bucket, initially described as a trash can, for her to use as a toilet. Papini suggested to her abductors that they put kitty litter in the bucket. I tried to say, like if you line it with a bag and put kitty litter in it, it will probably make the job a little easier. Papini's abductors took her advice and lined the bucket with kitty litter. She was given a shower twice while being held. She could not recall the approximate days that she was given showers because she was unable to tell the passage of time while she was in captivity.
How about the bathroom? What's that look like?
But it just was a standard. There was a crack in the tile. It was a light colored tile that was speckled. There was a crack in the tile. It was always hands on the wall. It was a really high pressured shower. That very first shower that I had hurt really bad because the burn was fresh and the water was running over it and there was other open wounds and it just...
Papini's older abductors stood at the door while the younger abductors stood behind Papini. Papini did not look at her abductors because she was always told not to look at them. She was provided with a body wash that smelled like coconut, but no shampoo. She first stated that she had washed her underwear in the shower, but later stated that she kept her underwear on while she showered and only had a few seconds to wash herself. She was not provided with a towel to dry herself. Papini managed to hit abductor with something but couldn't remember what it was that she used to hit her abductor. She stated, I tried to hit her with something in the bathroom, and the next time I went in the bathroom, everything was gone. The mirror was gone. The towel rack was gone. Detectives asked Papini how her hair came to be cut. She told detectives that she did not know what led to her hair being cut. She believed it was in response to her making noise because she was moving and the cable affixed to the pole in the closet clanged. Papini stated that whenever she would make noise, they would rush in. She had a hard time remembering the day and eventually recalled that she thought she was trying to make the bed. I want to say I was smoothing out a blanket and the cable made that noise. Papini did not feel it was time for the trash can to be emptied on that day, and the bigger one came into her room and Papini dropped to the floor on all fours. She had her hair pulled back already in what she believed was her original hair tie. The 2 women said something in Spanish to each other and the other one was outside the room. Papini said she was hit on the shoulder and then yanked backwards and she felt like it happened really fast. After her abductor cut Papini's hair, she said she held it in her hand and stood over Papini. The women told Papini, I'm gonna send it to your mother. Papini did not know what was used to cut her hair. Detectives asked Papini about a blog post written by Sherri Graf. Many people in the Reading area speculated that Papini wrote the blog post, which was titled, Keep Walking. The post appeared to have been written in sometime in 2007. In the post, Graf detailed how she grew up in Shasta Lake, California, was a good athlete, but was picked on in high school by a group of Latinos. The post stated, I used to come home in tears because I was getting suspended from school all the time for defending myself against the Latinos. The chief problem was that I was drug-free, white, and proud of my blood and heritage. This really irked the group of Latino girls, which would constantly rag and attack me. The post detailed how Graf fought the girls and how it took 3 full-size men to pull me off her. I broke her nose and split her eyebrow. The post goes on to explain why it was titled Keep Walking, because Graf's father told her how proud he was of her after the fight with the other girls and that she kept walking when her shin was split open as a result to the fight. Graf concluded with a post with being white is more than just being aware of my skin, but of standing behind skinheads who are always around in spirit as well and having pride for my country. Detectives told Papini it appeared as if the post was originally written on a MySpace page. When the detectives asked Papini if she had a MySpace account, she stated she didn't remember. She told the detectives prior to her kidnapping, she hired an attorney to try and have the post removed. She said she believed someone else had written the post using the name Sherri Graff and described the post as awful. So Sherri Papini had created this very detailed experience of what happened while she was abducted by these two Hispanic women. And after they were questioning her about this MySpace post that apparently came from Sherri, although she of course denied it, it kind of makes it seem like Sherri's a little bit of a racist, although she 100% denies it now. And in her recent documentary interviews, she says that she's not racist. She was only trying to describe her ex-boyfriend's mother, who is actually Irish. In the next video that I make on Sherri Papini, I'm going to get into more about how they discovered that it was actually the ex-boyfriend that came and picked Sherri up, and how they discovered that Sherri was lying about every single thing. And if you've watched Sherri's recent documentaries, I want to know what you guys think about this. Make sure to tune into the next video on Sherri Papini. I will see you guys later. Bye.